Cross-country healthcare. Not much to say about this company from my background other than I like the logo. Those are Band-Aids, right? That's a clever logo. This video is going to be structured with an opening move, then we'll gather facts from this annual report. We'll transition to unraveling the story behind the numbers, and finally, we'll consult with the Sage Seeds AI, which will simplify the financials into a ranking for the 2022 season. Now, there's been some fast progress since the last video. Cross-country healthcare is now going to be the 87th company in the 2022 season. We've added close to 40 companies since the last video, which is great. It does mean that this might be a little bit harder to figure out what ranking it's going to get as we go along, but I definitely believe in my viewers. Let's dive in so that your wisdom can blossom. The opening move is the item 8. Ooh, a delayed filing. Often it means tension between auditors and the CFO's department. Yep, here we have what most likely led to the delayed filing. Maybe we come back and look at more details if it becomes interesting. Consolidated balance sheet. Definitely interesting that there's so little cash being held on to. Very high goodwill. Not great things right off the bat. I think the current ratio is a bit interesting here because of the low amount of cash. The current ratio is close to 3, definitely above 2.5, which is a safe current ratio. That boils down mostly to their receivables, however, which are very, very, very large. And so a company that may or may not be young, retained earnings heavily increased, a very, very healthy increase. So something is happening correct. Definitely going to keep an eye on. Statement of operations. They do think of themselves as a services company. Check out the FedEx video or the Butterfly network video to get more of explanation about how service businesses manage their reporting. A little bit different than we normally think about it. But no cost of revenue is the short take. In fact, they have something called direct operating expenses. You might notice this is almost the same thing as the overall header. We want more detail. This isn't giving much more detail. Very significant line item on here is that direct operating expenses. So we're looking at about a 6% net margin in the latest year. This is an improvement, a significant improvement compared to previous years. Maybe it is a young company. Finally, the statement of cash flows. Because we're seeing that accounts receivable is actually decreasing in the last 2 years at a very healthy clip, that makes us feel a little bit more confident. Accounts receivable is the largest thing on the cash flow statement. It's the largest thing by far in current assets. That's where we're going. We're going to investigate the quality of this accounts receivables. Let's gather those facts. In the notes to the financial statements, they have a subheader for accounts receivable and a couple other things. They're also considering how many of their customers might not be able to pay back their debt at all, because so they're taking in some sort of calculation of credit risk. This is them going out of their way to say, some of our customers, we don't really think they're the best in terms of being able to pay us back. Despite that, their balance for this credit risk is very, very low. They're paying attention to it, but this is not a significant portion. This would be less than 1%, really. Companies' contract terms typically require payment between 1 to 2 months from the date of invoice. The majority of the company's customers are healthcare systems in acute care facilities. Now that is intensive care is another way people call that. No single customer accounted for more than 10%. Popping over to the item 1, here they're saying in the latest year, the net cash gain, so provided by the business, was 134 million compared to 2 years ago. They actually used money. They used 85 million. This improvement, they're saying, is directly due to higher accounts receivables stemming from the rapid growth in the business in late 2021 into early 2022. Now, very fair question is, I thought account receivables isn't a cash gain. And you're right. But what it means is it was the accounts receivables from 2 years ago that are now increasing the cash flow in the current year. We've seen a very high accounts receivable on the balance sheet. We then saw more color in the cash flow statement that over 100 million was taken away from accounts receivable. And so even though accounts receivables is so large, and that was our first impression, it's actually significantly smaller than it would have been a year ago, leading to this very, very encouraging swing into positive cash flow. This business is finally starting to collect receipts for services that they've been providing for years. This is the exciting part.
Hey, if you're getting more comfortable uncovering the stories behind the numbers, please like and subscribe.
Now, as an investor in this, we need to realize that this is probably never going to be a high margin business. Now, that's definitely bold for me to say that. Not all hospitals have the same financial ability. Sometimes you provide services to hospitals that then never pay you back. That is a small expense right now. We haven't seen a kind of a stability point yet. It's at less than 1% right now, though, so not very likely that it stays this low as the business continues to scale up. What we really want to keep an eye on is, will these accounts receivable convert? It's okay if it stays very, very high, but look at how much smaller the cash on hand is. And as investors, it certainly should be the biggest thing in our minds. They have 200 times more accounts receivable compared to cash on hand. It's not a bad situation, but it's not a comfortable one either. It's healthy in an uncomfortable way. As it currently stands, there is some chance that this company might need to raise further money. They normally might not need to if they were in another industry. It's just because of the industry that they're in. The industry is not something you can really change. We're just going to have to watch this management learn to live with the reality and hopefully buffer up their balance sheet a little bit while continuing to do what they're doing, because clearly they're growing and the service that they're doing does have a lot of people wanting to sign up for it. I would describe what we've just uncovered together to be a young company doing a lot of good things, arguably doing all the right things, that is in an industry that is not so hot, really. There's a lot of value in staffing medical facilities because really we all need them to a certain extent, whether it be family members or ourselves. In another sense, your finances are trickier here than in pretty much any other industry because you need to be patient with your customers. You have to be constantly balancing patience with your customers with not abusing your employees or suppliers. Those two things need to match up. They don't seem to be in a stable state yet, but they're doing it. And so how do we think about this? What's the valuation picture here? Please like and subscribe. Acute care, intensive care. I've had a couple of experiences visiting family members somewhat after a surgery or something. I mean, those facilities really make a big difference. The quality of those facilities, the quality of the people working in those facilities, they genuinely make such a big difference. And I'm very glad to see that anything that improves that experience for patients is rewarded by economics and by the market. What are people's experiences with this? Do they have any ideas about how they would think about this problem? Or what are people's understandings of the difficulty in managing payments when this is the sort of business that you're in? In the comments below, please share your wisdom and share this video. CCRN is ranked 2 out of 87 in value for the 2022 season. I'm happy about this. CCRN seems very happy. Interpretation of what's going on here. There was one real negative, potentially needing to raise capital in the future while having, and this is a very key point, while having what is relatively high goodwill on the balance sheet, which we briefly touched on. That's the main thing that CCRN was seeing as a negative to value. And frankly, it's not the biggest deal. Definitely something to keep an eye on, but everything else is just a solid young company, growing, not too fast, but definitely not slow, collecting receipts just with this annoying lag. Some financial analysts would definitely, including myself, would look at this and be off-put by the weird financial situation. I mean, that's what I've talked a lot about during this video as a human. What the AI is saying is, as long as they don't mess it up, which they haven't so far, it doesn't matter if you're collecting receipts right away or a couple months after the service is executed. It's still economic value with the most minimal of lag in the grand scheme of things. Here's where it's helpful to have the AI. It's uncomfortable, I called it, still makes economic sense. And that's really what Safety's AI is reminding us of with this high value ranking. Even after adding a whole new wave of new companies, this one went straight to the top of the rankings, number 2 spot. All the best to this company. Thank you for making the hospitals better.